Hey, everybody. It's time for our weekly call. And this week we'll be discussing nutrition, but specifically how we can make nutrition a simpler process. It's no secret that nutrition and the process of reaching our individual goals can become really complicated and even stressful at times. So I'm going to give you guys different tips and tricks that we can implement into our daily routine so that we can make this a stress-free, simple, and efficient process. So I made up a PowerPoint for you guys, and I'm going to share that right now, and we'll go through each of these. Okay, so how to make nutrition simple. Failing to plan is planning to fail. I'm sure everybody's heard this at some point before, but let's go through this, and I'm going to show you guys how to plan for success. So fitness and nutrition, it can be simple. It's a very fitness and reaching your goals, whether it comes down to gaining weight and muscle mass, losing weight and body fat percentage, or just maintaining your general weight and muscle mass, is very straightforward. If your goal is to lose weight, plain and simple, we want to aim to be in a caloric deficit, which means that you're going to be burning more calories than you consume on a daily basis. If our goal is to maintain our weight, we're going to look to have a very even number of how many calories per day we're burning and how many calories per day we're consuming. So it's going to even out in zero. Now, if we're looking to gain weight, then we're looking to be in a caloric surplus. So you want to be consuming more calories than you're burning per day so that we can add on to the body and build up. Now, that's very straightforward. If you look at a lot of the different fad diets that are out there, most of them are geared towards losing weight. So some that I can think of off the top of my head, you have intermittent fasting, you have a ketogenic diet that takes carbohydrates out. Really what all of those diets are aiming to do is have you over the total day consume less calories than you're burning. So the ketogenic diet does a really good job of that by eliminating carbohydrates completely. And that's where your loss of calories is coming from and your deficit's coming from for the day. Same thing with intermittent fasting. The idea is to not eat throughout the day, except for one very specific window. It can be different depending on how many hours long that window is. But if we're not eating throughout the day, the chances of you being able to fit the total 3 to 4 meals that you would typically consume throughout your, let's say, 12 to 16 hours of being awake, fitting that into 4 hours is highly unlikely. So naturally, you tend to eat less, which puts you in a caloric deficit and in turn loses weight. So and this is something that somebody told me that has stuck out to me for a long time. And I think it's actually really cool if you think about it. So fitness and just this whole journey of achieving your goals and becoming, I like to say, health more than fitness, is one of the only things that is very in control, that we're very in control of. Now, with this being said, I understand that there are definitely circumstances such as diseases out there that limit certain individuals to where it's out of their control. But for the most part, fitness is one of the only things in life that you get exactly out of it what you put into it. If you have a goal and you know that that goal requires you to train a certain amount of times per week and follow a certain nutritional plan, if we put 100% effort into that, you're going to get 100% return on it. On the flip side, if we skip days and we put, let's say, 75% effort into that, you can expect to see a 75% return on it. And you can think of different areas in your life. You can think of your job and your career. You can show up to work early every single day. You can check every single box that was asked of you and exceed your expectations, but that promotion is never going to be promised. On the flip side, you can try to be the nicest person in the world. You can be polite to every single person you meet, be intentional about just holding a good conversation. You think of it, and somebody might still not like you at the end of the day. Fitness is different than that. What we put into it is what we get out of it. And I think that's a very motivating thing, but it can also be something that causes a lot of stress to us if we don't meet our own expectations. And usually that comes from not having a good plan of action. So we'll move on to the next slide. And you're probably thinking, if fitness and nutrition and this whole journey of reaching my goals is so simple, why is it so difficult for me? Most people know exactly what they should be doing in order to reach their goals. Now, when I say that, they know what they should be doing, but the plan of action on how to actually go about it, that's where the confusion sets in. So in my opinion, it's about creating a realistic and sustainable plan that tends to cause issues for people because they don't have something like that set. We might have a plan set, but it doesn't fit into our individual lifestyle. And it could have even been made by a coach or somebody else that just didn't understand your specific circumstances. So common factors that cause inconsistency with these plans, you can think of just daily stress in general, a busy schedule, traveling, holidays, general loss of motivation, which can come from many different things. And this is just to name a few. The cool thing is that these are all controllable factors if we go about it the correct way. But on the flip side, it'll be amplified if these factors keep affecting us and throwing us off track. So you can actually relate this down to anything else that you've set a goal in life and went about achieving it. Think of your plan of action for that goal and how big of a priority it was for you. One common thing that I can relate to most people with is work. Most of us consider work as a priority in our life because we need it to survive. If we have a family, we need to put food on the table, put a roof over our head. And normally that's enough motivation alone to make sure that we show up to work on a daily basis. We do we meet our expectations that are given to us in our job. And in general, we try to work hard to succeed in that job so that we can provide for our families or even ourselves. It's different for everybody, but fitness is the same way. We need to make it a priority and make sure that we plan out our days to match what our goal is. Another instance that we can use is think about going through school. If we go to school and we're studying for a test, we typically know that if we want to succeed and get a good grade on that test, we're not going to push everything off until the last day and study the night before and stay up all night. We're going to try to set up a plan so that we dedicate 30 to 60 minutes per day to study this specific topic, and we do it on a regular basis leading up to that test so that we know that we're prepared. So fitness is the same way. If you're going through school, and let's say you're a student that is in college and lives on campus, your plan of attack for preparing yourself for that test is going to look a lot different than somebody that, let's say, is commuting to school with a family and they're working a full-time job. So different plans for different people. Everyone lives a different life that comes with its own complications, and it's really important to recognize where your roadblocks are and what your life's complications are so that we can plan for that and get ahead of the game so that we can make sure that we're overcoming that before it becomes an issue in our life. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is we want to be proactive about this and not reactive. So I already explained this a little bit, but somebody who lives in a single household is going to have a much different daily routine compared to somebody who lives in a household with family and children. Think just even the general members in our gym here. We might have somebody who is in their first full-time job ever and they're in their young 20s, right next to somebody that is in their 30s, 40s, and just starting up a family. Those two people are going to have totally different lifestyles and they're going to have very different schedules. So having them follow the same fitness and nutrition plan doesn't make the most sense totally. So your plan for success is going to look much different, even with the same goals. One commonality is that both of those parties we're going to need to find a way and find a plan that puts you into a place for you to succeed. And this is if you truly want to see the intended results. Another way to look at this is you can look at us coaches at the gym. Myself, Laura, Matt, Nick, we all live very different lifestyles. We all have our own specific goals and they do differ from person to person. And if you look at our plan of attack on those goals, we all take different approaches. Even from a nutritional standpoint, you can look at all of our diets where we each follow different diets, but at the end of the day, we all follow our macronutrients. Some of us might count our macros down to the T by using a tracker such as the diet plan in the app. Some of us might go more off the top of our head in the aspect of counting portion sizes and meal frequency throughout the day. And I'm not throwing all this out there to confuse you guys, but there's different plans of attack that all lead to success if you're mindful and intentional about it. And finding that plan that works best for you is really, really important. If I was to follow the same plan that Matt does or vice versa, it might lead to one of us being unsuccessful because me and Matt live totally different lives. He has a family with kids where I'm just about to get married and probably have a little bit more free time throughout my day than he does. So we plan differently. And like I said, at the end of the day, both examples will need to have a general idea if they are ending in a caloric deficit, surplus, or maintaining those calories per day to determine if they're losing weight, gaining weight, or just maintaining. So what's the best plan for me? I have goals and I want to start reaching them. What should I be doing? So working out, it requires us to sacrifice time and effort, both of which I think are very valuable. Most of us, like I discussed earlier, we work for the most part. We don't have a ton of free time. And at the end of the day, we're paying to be in a gym and we want to get a return on our investment. It's like anything else in life. Think about anything in your life that doesn't bring you financial freedom or immense joy, and try to think if you truly consistently put more than 3 hours a week into it. I personally cannot think of a single thing that I dedicate 3 hours of my time every single week if it doesn't bring me immense joy or money. Fitness is no different. I want to have a return on my investment if I'm sacrificing my valuable time and my effort towards this. So fitness should be no different. We want to see a return on our investment with that. What's the best plan for me to start seeing a return on my investment? Counting macros, in my opinion, is something that every single person who truly considers their goals a priority in their life to start understanding. Now, counting macros can be stressful for some people. It can be confusing at first, but the reason that I say that counting macros is so important for everybody is because even if it's just in the beginning, it's going to start to educate you on what your food is made up of. We can look at the number of calories we're supposed to consume per day. We can look at the amount of protein in grams, carbohydrates, and fat, and we can see all of those numbers. But if we don't know what our food on our plate consists of, it's kind of useless information. So knowing that a chicken breast, for example, has X amount of grams of protein, I know off the top of my head that a chicken breast, an 8-ounce chicken breast, has about 24 grams of protein in it. I know that roughly every egg white per egg has around 6 grams of protein in it. I know this for the majority of foods that I consume on a daily basis because I've tracked it in the past and it's almost become memorized in my head. Now, it does take a little bit of time to start like being able to eye up a plate and get a general idea of what that plate consists of as far as what the macronutrient split is and all of that. And I'm not expecting all of you guys to know that. What I would rather you do is start keeping track of what we put on our plate and what the nutritional value of each food is. If we have a plate of chicken breast, a cup of brown rice, and a serving of vegetables, let's say asparagus, I want you guys to know exactly how many grams of protein, carbohydrates, fat are on that plate. And with those 3 readings, how many calories it equals out to. If we're able to do that, then we can start adding up our daily meals and making sure that we're being intentional about hitting that daily caloric number, whether it's a surplus, a deficit, or we're looking to just maintain. If we're in a deficit, we can start planning out our meals to make sure that we're 200 to 500 calories below our maintenance level so that we are losing weight. On the flip side, if we're really intentional about gaining muscle mass and not concerned about losing body fat at the moment, maybe we bump up our maintenance by 200 to 300 extra calories per day to make sure that we're consuming those extra calories ahead of time. So what I'm getting at is whenever you learn how to count macros, it's going to teach you how to plan out your meals better. Looking through my notes to see if there's anything that I didn't touch on already, but a good way to look through this also is kind of just reframing what I just said. If we have a daily goal of 2,000 calories and we know that we typically consume 4 meals per day, let's say breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack at some point, What we need to do is we need to take that total goal of 2,000, divide it by 4, and that's how many calories we're going to be looking to have per meal, roughly 500 calories per meal. Now, if we do this in the app, which I will discuss later on, it actually does all of this for us. And it goes even further and shows you out of those 500 calories, how much of those calories should come from protein, how much should come from carbohydrates, and how much should come from fat to meet your specific goals. So planning for success with macros, as I was saying, while macros are very straightforward, it is literally the most, in my opinion, it's just a very simple process to focus on. If you want to lose weight, like we said, we put ourselves in a deficit and we consume less calories than we burn. If we want to gain weight, we consume more calories than we burn. And if we want to maintain, we stay right in the middle. Now, we know that information, and we've probably already heard that before. Putting that into practice is where things start to get complicated. So while we know what we should be doing, we tend to take other actions. And you can start thinking back to preparing yourself for that test if we're in school, okay? If our meals aren't planned and even possibly prepared ahead of time, we might start running into situations where we're being reactive and not proactive about it. Think about if you're in a rush in the morning and you skip breakfast. We just talked about how if your daily goal is 2,000 total calories and each meal needs to consist of 500 calories, I'm doing math off the top of my head, so I apologize if I'm not 100% correct here. But let's say we skip breakfast. That's 500 calories that we need to disperse across 3 separate meals now throughout the day, which is going to be putting us around 666 calories per meal, which might affect us. We might not have had a meal planned out for that, and we need to find out where that extra 166 calories is coming from. In addition, we need to make sure that that 166 calories is in agreement with our macros. We don't want to just add in 160 calories of fat if our goal is to increase protein. So I hope that's making sense to everybody. But what I'm getting at is we want to be proactive about this. So think to that test. If we decide to skip studying for one day, that's more information that we need to study across the span of 4 extra days. Let's say we have 5 days to get ready for a test and we plan on studying 1 hour every day and we get 5 total hours to study for that test. If we skip one day, now we have to increase the amount of time we study every other day. And in addition to this, if we all know this, if we skip one day, it makes it much easier to continue that pattern and do it the next day. I'm sure we've all been in the situation, unfortunately, where we procrastinated a little bit. We put off studying for our test, and then it's the night before. We're frantic, we're panicking, we're stressed because we're trying to cram all of this information in at the last minute. And we know that it's not going to be realistic to reach the goal that we intended to. Nutrition is no different. If we don't have that plan set and have intentions about following it and take the actions to make sure that we're set up for success, the same thing's going to happen. We're going to fall into a pattern where we're reacting to our situations. We're panicking to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to and the goals that we set out for ourselves. And then it ultimately creates stress, which leads to inconsistency and ultimately which leads to demotivation, which has us in turn questioning, is this the right program for me? Am I doing the right thing for my body? Is there better things out there? Whenever we know what we should be doing, we're just not simply doing it. And trust me, this isn't me coming down on anyone in any way, shape, or form, because it is a stressful and confusing process. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to help take a really complicated topic and simplify it for you. So how can we solve this problem, since there's always going to be these unexpected roadblocks? Whenever some of these situations happen, sometimes it's not possible to be proactive about them, but having the plan set ahead of time is going to make it that much easier to stay on track, or at least to get right back on track if we fall off. Staple meals. This is what I initially created this whole thing around. Me personally, I think that staple meals have been the most beneficial thing that I've implemented into my weekly routines. I have different meals that I eat throughout the week that I consume on a consistent basis. If you've talked about nutrition with me in a one-on-one meeting, I've probably told you I literally eat the same breakfast every single day. I make my breakfast ahead of time on Sunday and Wednesday nights. I'll tell you what my breakfast is, but I find meals that are easy to make, they're cheap to make, they taste really, really good, and I don't mind eating them on a regular basis. In addition, all of those meals they're in agreement with my goals. So they're macro friendly to what I'm trying to achieve in the gym. So having that, my breakfast, for example, every Sunday night, I make a breakfast burrito. My breakfast burrito contains 3 eggs, low fat shredded cheese, a tortilla. For my topping, I'll saute onions and put it in there. But basically what I'm getting at is I've made a recipe for my meal that fits perfectly with my macros. It meets the amount of protein that I'm looking to eat per meal. It meets the amount of carbohydrates that I'm looking to eat per meal, and then the grams of fat as well. I know ahead of time whenever I make that it's already made and it's a good, healthy choice for me. So another plus about this is every day whenever I'm tracking my macros, I already know what that breakfast consists of. I don't have to sit there on my phone and pull out my calculator and try to think about what everything consists of while my food is sitting in front of me getting cold. I also don't have to log it because I already have that meal saved and I literally just do it every single day, Monday through Friday. It couldn't be a simpler process. Now, me, I'm a little bit of a creature of habit and I don't mind eating the same breakfast every day. Whenever it comes down to lunch and dinner, I do things a little bit differently. There's no way I could eat the same dinner every night. And that's just me personally. Some people can. Other things that you can think of, this doesn't have to just be meals. Protein shakes are a good option, but I'm starting to rant a little bit and we'll talk about that later. So instead of counting and preparing every single meal throughout my day based on what my body needs, I try to find and create a meal or multiple meals throughout the week that's in agreement with my goals and I don't mind consuming on a regular basis. As I said before, instead of counting my macros for breakfast every day, I found a meal that's tasty, it's enjoyable, it's quick, and it's fairly cheap to make. And I can make it multiple servings. I can make multiple servings days ahead of time. So for me, that burrito, I wrap every single one of them up in a thing of tin foil. Whenever I come into the gym, the first thing that I do is I pop it in the microwave for 2 minutes and I eat it. Some days I get it in before I come into the gym, but there's some mornings that I'm busy and I'm on the go. I know that at the very least, really, I don't even need a microwave. It might not taste as good, but let's say I'm on the way to the gym and I know that I won't even have time to eat whenever I get to the gym. I'll just eat it in the car and I'll eat a cold burrito. It won't be the tastiest thing, but I had my breakfast and I got my nutrition for the morning and I'm still in the right direction for my goals. But what I was saying before is I know that if I have 2 minutes of free time and I can pop that burrito in the microwave, that's all that I have to do to get ready for that breakfast. A lot simpler than sitting there and creating a meal every single morning. So examples of my staple meals. I told you guys about the burrito, but I'll go back through this because I have more details here. Typically, breakfast and lunch can be the most difficult plans for people to think out. Typically, we are either in the office or working. Even if you're at home, I've worked virtually as well, and I know that the days can be very busy. Finding the time to make a lunch or even go out and grab a lunch on the go, we don't always have that. So every single day during the weekdays, this is Monday through Friday, I have my breakfast burrito. I make them ahead of time each Sunday, and I actually do it while I'm cooking my dinner. If I'm being honest, the time it takes me to make 5 burritos for the week probably only takes me about 15 minutes. When I first started doing this, it took me a little bit closer to 30 because I was learning what I was doing. I was counting out my nutrition throughout the meals to make sure that everything was in agreement with what my goals are. But now I have that process down pat, and it doesn't take me much thought or time. It's just second nature to me, and I get it done every single Sunday. Each burrito, it has 3 eggs, 1 slice of turkey bacon, sauteed onions, low-fat cheese, a tortilla, which is in line with my personal goals. It may not be in line with your goals, so don't take and copy this recipe and expect to see success off of it. I use salsa or hot sauce for a topping because they're fairly low in calories. and I like my food to taste good. Like I said before, I don't need to count the macros because I've already determined what they are ahead of time. And I know that every single day I'm consuming the same amount. All of the burritos are the same and they're going to come out to the same. Lunch and dinner can be tackled the same way. Ideas for dinner. I have a couple different meals in rotation, and this isn't to say that I eat the same thing every single week. Like Monday through Friday, my meals do change, but in general, you can expect me to eat 2 to 3 of these meals every single week. Lean steak with rice and asparagus. I typically, whenever I say rice, I don't go for the boxed pre-made rices. Steamed rice is okay, but unflavored steamed rice, if you have the microwavable bags, that's typically my go-to when I'm in a rush. And if you guys need different options, I can help you out with that. You just want to make sure that you're not getting any of the rice with all the additives, because that's just nutrition that we could put into different places. We could possibly have a bigger portion of protein, but I digress. Chicken with roasted potatoes and green beans. If you don't have the time to cook chicken throughout the week, start buying a rotisserie chicken every single week. I buy a rotisserie chicken like I buy a carton of eggs. I buy one every single week whenever I go grocery shopping, because it is so easy while I'm on the go to simply just grab a portion of chicken, take a cup of that steamed rice, microwave it, and have some vegetables on the side. It can even literally be raw broccoli, and you have a good lunch for your nutritional goals. As long as the portions are in agreement with what you're looking to achieve fitness-wise, then those are perfect perfect food choices. If we're looking at more, I like to say, comfort meals, there's nights that you might not want to have your typical lean protein, clean rice, and vegetables, and that's okay. Planning for those nights is important too. I regularly make a shrimp Alfredo that is actually very healthy because the way that I make it is healthy. I don't put a ton of butter in it like a typical recipe would call for. I do a shrimp Alfredo with low or even non-fat Alfredo sauce. They are out there and they don't taste that bad if you find the right ones. And then being mindful of your pasta portions. That's all that we need to do to have those comfort meals. And if you want more ideas of meals like this, I'm full of them. If you are personally a vegetarian and you need different ideas in that aspect, I would definitely talk to Nick. He can help you out with all of that. And as I mentioned earlier, the next meal that I have here is rotisserie chicken, a bag of steamed rice, and broccoli. With that rotisserie chicken, you can make even more meals that are pretty quick as well and don't require a ton of time out of you. I'll take that rotisserie chicken and make fajitas out of it. All that I have to do is saute peppers and onions, heat up my tortillas, and I'm ready to go there. You can do enchiladas the same way if you have the sauce, and there's endless opportunities with rotisserie chicken. I highly encourage it. But those are ideas for dinner. One thing that I do when I make dinner is I always make extra portions so that I have lunch prepared the day ahead of time. I'll just simply take what I made for dinner, put it into a Tupperware, and bring it in for lunch the next day. It's as simple as that. Typically, me personally, I like to have a different dinner every night. I enjoy food, so I enjoy enjoying my food. But my lunch, I'm usually at work throughout the day, and I don't mind at all if I have the same meal for lunch that I had for dinner the night before. It's a good way to keep yourself consistent, but also switch things up. Snacks are one that can be a little bit tough for some people too, but you can make your snacks ahead of time. So protein shakes are my go-to recommendation because they are very macro friendly. It's hard to find sources of high protein that don't also consume a lot of carbohydrates or grams of fat, unless you're looking at things like lean meat, which are kind of weird to snack on alone by itself. But if you can do that, those are good choices too. But protein shakes, all that you have to do is simply take a shaker bottle or even an empty water bottle, funnel a scoop of protein in here. And if you're on the go at work, fill up that water, shake it for 30 seconds, and you have your meal made already. Overnight oats is something that I've been recommending to a lot of clients. Is whenever you're making those overnight oats, you can store them in the refrigerator overnight, have them ready to go right before you go to work the next day, and there's your breakfast already pre-made. Rotisserie chicken, I've mentioned it enough times, but it is a great option to have a source of lean meat so that you have it on the go and you can just take your portions, put it into a Tupperware, and it's ready for you. One thing that I will say about rotisserie chicken is whenever we're choosing the meat off of there, try to be mindful about the skin and the fat that's on the chicken so that we're going to pick that away and we want to be consuming the lean meat out of that so that we're getting the protein and not offsetting our macros. The whole goal of this is to make things as simple as possible. If this is done regularly, you're going to start to memorize what your meals consist of. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but for the most part, as I explained earlier, you're going to be able to look at your plate and say that chicken on my plate, that portion of chicken has X amount of grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. You can do the same thing with your rice and your vegetables. And counting these macros doesn't have to always be as specific as it is in the beginning. But starting out and educating yourself on what your meals consist of is really, really important. And it's only going to benefit you in the long run. If you're like me, you don't enjoy logging your meals when a plate of food is sitting right in front of you. But over time, learning what that plate of food consists of is going to allow you the freedom to start making smarter choices on your portion sizes without having to pull out a calculator and go through all that detail like we did up front. So let's get started. How can you start implementing this into your daily schedule and your daily routine? If you haven't already, come talk to one of us coaches so that we can help you create a custom meal plan for your specific goals. So you know what you should be eating on a daily basis and consuming to work towards those goals. Whenever we create that plan, what we'll do is we'll put it into your Benton Better app. And like I discussed earlier, it's going to tell you exactly how many calories you should be consuming per day, but it's actually going to go a step further. And it's going to show you how many grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fat you should be consuming per day. It's also going to give you ideas of meals that you can put into practice that are in agreement with those goals. It'll go one step further even and tell you how many grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fat per meal you should be having. So it makes all of this a lot simpler. Third step from there is we're going to use that information, and I want you to create 2 meals of your own that match those recommendations. So for one meal, I'm talking portion-wise, not the whole day. I want you to take 1 meal's worth of recommended calories, grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fat, and create a recipe that you know is easy to make, it's tasty and you enjoy it, you don't mind consuming it on a regular basis, and it's just something that we're going to start implementing into our daily routine or our weekly routine, whether it's breakfast every day, it's a dinner that you made ahead of time so that you have lunch prepared the next day. As I say, always come talk to us coaches if you need further instructions and more ideas about this. But I wanted to get everybody's juices flowing about how they can start to make nutrition simpler. Just think about how we can start planning and make that plan as simple as possible. If we know what we should be consuming, let's plan what we will consume ahead of time and make that consumption as simple as possible so that we can start being more consistent about reaching our goals. Another really important thing about this is I want to talk about an all or nothing mindset. Whenever you start up a new plan, striving for 100% perfection is a quick way for you to let yourself down and get demotivated. Know that there is going to be roadblocks. There's going to be days that don't go perfect, and that is okay. As long as we're intentional about doing our best, and if we do fall off track, getting right back on track the next day, that's where your success is truly going to come from. There's a lot of people out there that deal with all or nothing mindsets. You can probably relate back to it, but there's some out there that, let's say they skip a workout for the day because they had a tough schedule for the day and they were really busy and just couldn't make it into the gym. That person's also just as likely to fall off track with their nutrition and, let's say, just order a pizza for the night and take it easy. That same person is going to find it much easier to continue that pattern day by day, maybe skip the next day's workout, continue to eat unhealthy, and then a week later, they're not in the place where they want to be in agreement with their goals. So what I'm getting at here is if you do have little hiccups throughout this journey, and let's say you do skip breakfast while making it ahead of time, and you even have that meal planned and you just don't get it in. That's okay. Don't let that become a regular process though. Get right back on track, talk to one of us coaches, tell us where you're struggling, and we'll help you with new ways to overcome those hurdles. But I hope this was helpful for everybody. Continue to submit your questions ahead of time on the form for these weekly calls, and I'll go over any questions that you guys have. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the gym, and let's keep crushing it.